Hello, everyone. Welcome to this new lesson of the course. In this lesson, we will learn how to create this interesting image hover effect. So, when I hover over the image, you can see that a semi-transparent background appears from the bottom and moves upward to the top, and the caption appears above it. But if we watch closely, we can see the caption appears a little bit later than the background. And when we hover away, the caption disappears first before the blue background. So we will be using some transition delays to do this. All right, so as usual, let's start by writing the markup of our HTML. I will start right here by adding a div and giving it a class of fig. Then inside of it, I will add an image tag, and we will add our image. Then we need to add the caption. So below the image, I will add another div and give it a class of caption. And inside of this div, I will add an h3 and say amazing caption. And below that, I will add h5 and say you can write anything here. So when we view this in the browser, you can see this is looking ugly. So let's go to our CSS and make it look a little nicer. First, I will target the div with a class of fig. And I will add width, 500 pixels, then color, white, font family, railway, border radius 10 pixels, position, relative. All right, let's keep it moving. I will target the image inside the fig div, and I will set its width to 100%, so it will take up the full width of its parent div, which is 500 pixels. All right, now it's looking much better. We have our image and the caption sits below it. Cool. Now let's work on the semi-transparent background that slides in from the bottom to cover the image. We will create it using the before pseudo element. So I will go to my CSS and say fig, before, and I will add content, empty, position, absolute, top, 0, left, 0, and we want it to take up the full width and height of the fig, so we will say width, 100%, and height, 100% as well. Then background color, this greenish color, and because it's semi-transparent, we will add opacity, 0.5. There we go. You can see the background is now taking up the whole width and height of the fig, so that it even covers the caption. Now let's work on the caption and center it horizontally and vertically inside the fig. So I will go back to my CSS and target the div with a class of caption inside the fig. Then I will add position, absolute, top, 0, width, 100%, and height, 100% as well. Next, we will center the H3 and H5 inside it using Flexbox. So we will add display, flex, then flex direction, column, to make the H3 and H5 sit one below the other. You see, it's set to row by default, which will display them side by side in a row, but we want them to be in a column. Then, in order to center them, we will add align items, center, and finally, justify content, center as well. And now you can see the caption is centered horizontally and vertically inside the Fig div. But the content inside the caption, which is the H3 and H5 right here, are not looking good. So let's target them and make them look better. I will go to my CSS and add Fig, H3, comma, and then Fig, H5, and I will add margin, 0, then letter spacing, 1 pixel. Then below that, I will target the H3 individually. Then I will add text transform, uppercase, and font weight, 400. Then we need a little bit of spacing below it, so we will add margin bottom, just 5 pixels. And below that, I will target the H5 this time. And we want to add a little background to it, so I will add background color, this brownish color, and I will also add a padding of 3 pixels from top and bottom and 5 pixels from left and right. Awesome! So here is how the Fig looks. You can see the semi-transparent background is covering it, and the caption sits right there at the center. Now, we need to work on the hovering effect. So if we take a quick look at our demo, you can see the background is moving from the bottom to the top, and we can do that, no problem. I will just go back to my CSS and go inside the before pseudo element. And we want to position the background below the Fig so that when we hover, it will return to its original position. So I will add transform, translate Y, 100%. So now you can see it moved downward by 100% of its height. And because its height is equal to 100% of the Fig height, it moved a distance equal to the Fig height. So it's now positioned right below the Fig. All right, next, let's make it invisible outside the Fig. I will go to the Fig selector, and I will add overflow, hidden. And now you can see it's not visible anymore. Now, on hovering over the Fig, we want the background to slide up again to its original position. So let's get that done. In my CSS, I will go right here, and when hovering over the Fig, I want to make some changes happen to the background, which is the before pseudo element. I want to make it return to its original position, so I will add transform, translate Y, 0. And of course, we want that to happen smoothly. So I will go up here inside the before pseudo element selector, and I will add transition, all, 0.25 seconds, so that the upward movement will happen smoothly. And now, when I go and hover over the Fig, you can see the background is moving from the bottom to the top, covering the Fig. And when I hover away, it returns and sits below the Fig again. But if we take a look at our demo again, you can see that on hovering, the background moves immediately to cover the Fig. But when hovering away, it waits a very short time until the caption disappears. And after that, it disappears as well. Are you seeing that? All right. We can do that using the transition delay function. So back to our CSS. I will go inside the before pseudo element again, and I will add transition delay. Just 0.25 seconds. And now, when I go and hover over the Fig, you can see the background waits for a very short time, 0.25 seconds to be exact, then appears. And when hovering away, it waits 0.25 seconds, then disappears. But we want it to wait only before disappearing. We don't want it to wait when we hover over the Fig. In other words, we want it to appear immediately, but wait the 0.25 seconds before disappearing. So what we should do is we should go right here, and on hovering over the fig, we will add transition delay, 0 seconds for our background. So now what will happen here is when I hover over the fig, the background will start moving immediately because I set the transition delay to 0 right here. But when I hover away, it will wait 0.25 seconds and then it will disappear. Let's take a look. Cool. Now, we need to work on the caption. If we take one last look at our demo, you can see that when we hover, the caption waits until the background covers the fig and then it appears. So we will use transition delay to make it wait 0.25 seconds before appearing. You can also see that it's fading in from the top by a distance of about 20 pixels or so. And finally, when we hover away, it disappears immediately. All right, so let's go to our CSS and go to the caption selector. Then add transform, translate Y, minus 20 pixels, so it will move upward by 20 pixels. Then we want it to be transparent, so we will add opacity, 0, and finally, transition, all, 0.25 seconds. All right, now, when hovering over the fig, I want to make some changes happen to the caption. I want the caption to fade in again, so I will add opacity, 1, and I want it to return to its position, so I will add transform, translate Y, 0. And I want it to wait before it appears. It should appear after the background appears. So I will give it transition delay, 0.3 seconds. And now, when I go and hover over the fig, you can see the caption fades in nicely from top to bottom.